Okay, you know why we're here. You know I'm a longtime Dragon Ball fan. I mean, come on, seeing stuff like Goku turning Super Saiyan for the first time, for example, was the shit to me back in my day. Nowadays, it's all just the skibbity toilets and the gyats and whatever the hell mewing is or whatever's trending these days. I stopped keeping track of trends ever since Fortnite blew up. I mean, come on, I'm 18. I'm basically a foot in the grave at this point. I don't got the time to be all hip and cool with Gen Alpha. But anyway, how about we just talk about the Dragon Ball movies? This video will not feature Bardock, Father of Goku, or the history of Trunks, since they are officially special episodes and not movies. Though to be honest, most of these movies don't really feel like movies. In the end, they just feel like really long episodes. But that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy them. Well, most of them. I mean shit, half the time I was rewatching them, I was jamming to the 90s and early 2000s rock music playing in the background. To be honest, I miss when we had music like this playing while Goku got his ass beat. But oh well, it is what it is, am I right? But yeah, this list features 22 movies, so I'm just gonna fly right into it.
Oh shit, here we go again.
You fucking knew. You knew this would end up at the bottom. This piece of shit is untrue to the excellent source material. It even has the nerve to have the main power source for the characters be airbending instead of ki. Like, what the fuck were they thinking? They turned Dragon Ball, a franchise known to be fun, into a pathetically boring and bland film. Are you kidding me? Are you out of your mind? In the first 20 minutes, they miserably fail at trying to make this a cliche Spider-Man movie. No, seriously. Goku here not only gets bullied at school, but is also a simp for Chi-Chi. Not just that, but when he is having trouble mastering the Kamehameha, what does he do? He gives up and tries to cheat. That is not something Goku will do. The reason why Goku, as a character, was drawn in the first place is to inspire people to never give up and push to greater heights. Now what do we call this, friends? Character assassination. And don't get me started on Piccolo. I've seen amateur cosplayers do a better job at looking like Piccolo than this guy. And not to mention, he has literally none of the abilities the original character has. Again, none of these characters do. Hell, none of them even look like their anime counterparts. Especially Roshi. I mean, look at the guy. He looks nothing like him. I swear, Shrek the Musical, of all things, was more faithful to the original character designs than Dragon Ball Evolution. Or I guess a more accurate title would be Dumb Shit De-Evolution. At this point, Dragon Ball Evolution is probably part of my lore, so I'm never gonna escape this movie. Wait, what's that? You're telling me there's a licensed video game adaptation for the PSP? Alexa, add the Dragon Ball Evolution game to my shopping list. But yeah, I'll be honest, I'm kinda burned out already. So let us get to something not as abysmal. So this is the third Broly movie, and as you already know, it is not only the worst of the Broly trilogy, but also the worst Dragon Ball movie ever. Like, what the fuck is this? That is not Broly. He's just some stupid monster that was created by using Broly's blood that was shed during movie 10. And Final Broly's defeat is just so damn anticlimactic as well. I mean, they just keep bringing him back non-stop just for him to turn into stone. I'll admit, there were some entertaining moments, like the whole thing between Hercule owing 18 money. But considering the fact the main conflict was Jaguar threatening to reveal that Hercule pissed the bed when he was a kid really sets the tone for the movie. But again, what really seals the deal of this being the worst animated Dragon Ball movie is this quote-unquote Broly. If this thing wasn't named Broly, then this movie would have been much more tolerable. But no, this movie completely destroys Z Broly's character, even if it has already been on a decline since Broly's Second Coming. More on that later. But to be honest, there really ain't much to say about this movie. It's pretty bad. I'm also glad they decided to rework Broly's character in Super instead of just retconning Z Broly once again. Like seriously, at this point his character was already damaged beyond repair, so it makes sense for them to restart from scratch. But yeah, let us move on to the number 20 spot. Okay, so this is basically a brief retelling of one of the first major arcs of the original Dragon Ball anime. The once benevolent King Gurumez is suffering from eternal hunger and wants to use the 7 Dragon Balls to cure his hunger pains. Meanwhile, he's destroying the city he rules for blood rubies, which caused him to be transformed into a monster. And to be honest, this movie is not that good. At the end of the day, it just feels rushed. It feels like they tried to cram in several plot points in a 50-minute movie, and it fails miserably. So all in all, skip this one and watch the anime instead. You won't be missing much. But yeah, let us get to the number 19 spot. At this point of the story, Goku and Krillin strive to become Roshi's students. So in order to reach their goals, they have to rescue a sleeping princess from a place called the Devil's Hand and bring her to Roshi. Oh, and Launch is here. Remember her? No? Okay. There really isn't much to say about this movie. Unlike movie 1, this is an original narrative with the same subtle plot as the original Dragon Ball anime. The comedy was also pretty strong in this as well. I mean, come on, Bulma's reaction to that old guy is priceless. But yeah, overall, this was a step up from movie 1, so how about we get to... And now to the last of the OG Dragon Ball movie trilogy. This one was in a potentially worse state than Curse of the Blood Rubies, but somehow it actually does everything better. Hell, it's even 2 minutes shorter than movie 1. At the point this movie was released, we were dealing with the Demon King Piccolo stuff, but Mystical Adventure managed to do the impossible and retold several key plot points in the anime in a compelling way that actually didn't feel rushed. Now obviously, this isn't really an S-tier movie. I mean, this movie is on the number 18 spot for a reason, but to be honest, it's a solid movie and that's about it. Number 17. And now to the first ever Dragon Ball Z movie. It's alright. Nothing extraordinary. But I can say with an open heart that this movie's weird. I mean, there's a scene where Gohan gets high off a fruit. But of course, this was one of the first times Goku and Piccolo teamed up against a common enemy. But that's really it. I mean, yeah, the stakes are pretty high since Garlic Jr. used the Dragon Balls to make himself immortal. And yes, even the Goku-Piccolo duo weren't enough to take him down. But I really like how Gohan ended up being the one to defeat him. This, and the time he attacked Raditz, was when we knew this kid had mad potential. This was also one of the only times we've ever seen Kami fight. Yeah, he got his ass kicked, but we still saw him fight. But to be honest, it's really just a decent movie that, again, doesn't really stand out to me. But yeah, let us move on. It's now to Dragon Ball Z Movie 2. There are moments in this movie that resemble key elements from the Saiyan saga. To be specific, the Nappa and Vegeta fight. I mean, look at these guys. Don't they look familiar? Or how about this shot? It's oddly familiar to the Kamehameha and Gallic Gun struggle if I say so myself. But other than that, Dr. Wheelo is an interesting concept, but his execution... it was alright. The action was decent, but again, if you really think about it, a ton of elements were taken from the Vegeta fight, and it almost feels distracting in a way. But here's one of the most noteworthy moments in this movie. This was the first time in Dragon Ball history the Spirit Bomb actually worked. And as you probably know, that shit didn't work until Majin Buu. But yeah, I think we can move on. 9 times out of 10, the sequel is inferior to the original. And unfortunately, this movie fits in the majority. We spend like the first half of the movie dealing with an isolated village that's dealing with a monster crisis. You'd think it would be Broly, but nope, it's just some random ass dinosaur. And to be honest, most of the elements in the village have nothing to do with Broly. The only things leading up to Broly are Goten crying for an apple, and I guess this weird superstitious dude who reappears in Bio Broly who would have been irrelevant otherwise. Broly in this movie was nothing but a screaming brute. Like, seriously, all he ever said in this movie was Kakarot. Oh, I'm sorry. He says one more thing before the final struggle. Play the clip.
Not until you lie dead at my feet.
I mean, I guess that's better than what we've seen in Bio Broly, but even then, if you compare it to DBZ Movie 8, it's just... This movie is also filled with immature P jokes. Okay, so there's a difference between toilet humor done right and toilet humor done wrong. Here's an example. The Great Mighty Pooh from Conker's Bad Fur Day is funny. Trunks peeing on Broly is not funny. We did get some badass moments, however, like with Gohan getting a chance to shine and getting his ass beat, as well as the family Kamehameha. I really liked the lava chase sequence as well. But to be honest, yeah, I don't really have much to say about Broly's second coming, so how about we move on to the number 14 spot. And now for the only Dragon Ball movie villain who's had a second appearance that isn't Broly. And to be honest, just like Broly's case, I don't really like how Cooler's portrayed in this movie. I mean, look, his whole shtick in Cooler's Revenge is the fact that he is not Frieza. But yet in this movie, he's pretty much Frieza 2.0. Seriously, Metal Body? Frieza did it. Attack the Namekians' homes? Frieza did it. Underestimated Goku? Guess what? Frieza fucking did it! Team 4-Star makes fun of this in their abridged version of the movie. Feel free to check it out when you get the chance. But yeah, it's a good thing this movie is not canon because no dragon would have been able to save Bola from that nut shot. But other than that, this was the first time Goku and Vegeta have teamed up against a common enemy, like, ever. But other than that, just like with Broly's second coming, I don't really have much to say about the return of Cooler. So let us get to the number 13 spot. It's now to the movie that was cancelled by Team 4-Star. And for an understandable reason. Bojack as a villain is kinda meh, to be honest. Especially since he doesn't get a lot of screen time. Same goes for his lackeys, which I couldn't even be bothered to remember their names if I'm being completely honest. Not that it matters anyways, since they're all generic and boring characters. That also applies to Bojack, by the way. Like, he doesn't show up until the second half of the film, and it's really just disappointing. Oh well, at the price of a mediocre villain, we did get some badass moments. Especially out of Gohan, who, just like in the Cell Saga, was the star of the show. They recreated that scene where a Super Saiyan 2 Gohan one-shots the Cell Juniors in badass fashion. But again, there were some issues with the plot. Like the fact Goku brought himself back to life for a few seconds to save his son, just by will alone. I mean, I guess this proves Goku's not a bad father after all. I mean, the dude literally broke the laws of death just to protect his son. But my point still stands. Okay, at this point I'm just making nitpicks, so let us move on. You can tell Dr. Gero is going through a phase while making this one. But yeah, this movie is really, how do I put it, formulaic, for lack of a better term. I mean, look, the good guys are doing some random shit. Bad guys show up. Goku wins in the end, in the most cliche and anticlimactic way possible. That's it. Oh, and also... well, bye-bye Goten. Also, if you look at this closely in slow motion, you could actually see Goku's balls breaking. What am I doing with my life? But yeah, that's really the only noteworthy thing about this movie that I can explain in full detail. I mean, of course there's Android 13, which, to be honest, to me, he's just, haha, funny redneck robot punches Goku in the balls. I mean, I guess Goku absorbing the Spirit Bomb is kinda neat, but then Goku just one-shots Android 13, and it's over. And just like Android 13's defeat, I'ma have to end this section anticlimactically, because there's really nothing left to say about this movie. So let us get to number 11. This might be surprising to some, but I rest my case with Lord Slug being on the number 11 spot. I think it's neat to have a Namekian villain that isn't Piccolo. And of course there's the most noteworthy scene, the debut of the legendary Super Saiyan.
Good guess, but actually no.
I think it's neat to see what Super Saiyan would have looked like had Toriyama not colored the hair. But it's not just Goku who has significance. There's also Piccolo, who was the key to the hero's victory. I like how the key to Slug's defeat was Gohan's annoying whistling that was originally shown to be insignificant. But yeah, to be honest, it's a pretty solid movie, and there ain't really much to say about it. Let us move on to the top 10. And now to the original Goku Black. Turles as a character is a pretty neat concept. It's basically a what if had Goku completed his mission of conquering Earth and not hit his head as an infant. But yeah, I was really surprised when I was rewatching this movie. The stakes were very high, with a giant tree draining the world of its energy. I also really liked the finishing blow, as it felt like some western duel. Not only was it badass, but it was also poetic and fitting, given that he was pretty much killed by his own design. I'll admit, the movie had a bit of a slow start, mostly with the whole forest fire thing, but the action more than makes up for it. I like how, unlike Lord Slug, this movie has the whole squad in on the action, which is quite rare for Dragon Ball, especially nowadays. But yeah, this was a great movie, and I don't really have anything left to say about this. So let us move on. This was back when Frieza coming back to life was an original concept. Resurrection F is a movie. Might seem off-putting that Super Saiyan Blue, or as it used to be called back in the day, Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan, as well as Golden Frieza are just recolors. And you're right. But I like how Golden Frieza is basically a mockery of the Super Saiyan concept. Hell, just look at Frieza's transformations and compare them to Goku's. Coincidence? I think not. And of course, my biggest complaint is the fact they didn't let Vegeta get his revenge. I mean, yeah, we saw him beat the hell out of Frieza, but that's not the same as him dealing the finishing blow that every Dragon Ball fan on Earth has been wanting to see for decades. Well, let's hope that changes in the Black Frieza arc. But there's also the fact most of the fighting was spent on the Sea Fighters fighting Frieza's lackeys, which was fun at first, but I think it went on for a little too long. I mean, the whole Goku vs. Frieza as well as the Vegeta vs. Frieza fight scenes were pretty neat, and to be honest, that's kinda it. Let us move on. This movie is another recap of the OG Dragon Ball anime, but unlike the other ones, this was actually pretty good. There are plenty of emotional moments in this movie, like with Ader's sacrifice for one, but if you really think about it, the main villain's name is Black, even though, I mean, I guess this isn't really the only out-of-context thing in Dragon Ball.
Hold your fire! This man isn't black!
But yeah, that's all I have to say about the Path to Power, so how about we move on? And now to my personal favorite evil Saiyan. And they say women are over-sexualized in anime. I mean, seriously, the dude has a 12-pack. Anyway, DBZ Broly as a villain and as a character was the best he's ever been in this movie. Mainly because he actually has some depth to his character. Instead of simply being a giant grunting moron like he was in the other movies, this Broly is just a straight-up sadist. Like, just look at the scene when he just blows up that planet. He just laughs his ass off and taunts the race that once lived there.
Oops, did I just blow it up?
Or how about the scene where he crushes his own father in a space pod? And of course, there's also Broly's specialty, the brutal beatdowns. I also like how he doesn't just scream Kakarot 24/7. But I, as well as pretty much everyone else in the Dragon Ball community, am not a fan of his villain origin story. I mean, King Vegeta leaving him and Paragus to die because of his jealousy was solid, but becoming an intergalactic threat because Goku cried a lot as a baby is just, ugh. Now, I hate dealing with crying infants as much as the next guy, hence one of the reasons why I don't plan on having kids, but I don't think it's really a good backstory for the legendary Super Saiyan. Unless it maybe reminds him of the trauma from being stabbed and being left to die? That's literally the only decent way I can think of to improve Z Broly's origin story without making any major changes to his character. I also feel like his defeat was a bit of an asspull. Like, look at everyone here. The good guys are beaten to a pulp as well as Goku, but suddenly all the little energy they had was enough to power up Goku to the point where he can just one-shot Broly. There's no way that little bit of energy Vegeta had was just enough to give Goku the power boost he needed. To be honest, I feel like the writers were backed into a corner during development, so they couldn't really think of a more believable way to take out Broly. But whatever. This movie was Z Broly at his peak, and I wish the other two movies could live up to this one's legacy. Now let us move on. I swear, they really need to canonize Cooler next. I hope he makes a surprise appearance during the Black Frieza arc. And also make him stronger than Frieza, because he will always be Cooler. Anyway, I love how in the beginning, it's established that Cooler is not Frieza 2.0. In fact, I really like Cooler as a concept. I mean, not only does his existence flesh out Frieza's family and race, but it's also the fact he has a pretty solid motivation that isn't just avenge his brother. If only they could have kept up that good writing in his return. Anyway, this movie wastes very little time with the subplots. I mean, Goku having to spend half the movie injured was kinda off-putting, I guess, but the action more than makes up for it. I especially like that scene of Piccolo fighting Salza in the forest. Not gonna lie, it kinda reminds me of that chase sequence in Return of the Jedi. But anyway, there's also Cooler's final form, which I think we all agree looks really badass. But to be honest, I feel like Cooler was defeated a little too easily when Goku went Super Saiyan. I know you can only do so much in a movie, but I feel like there could have been a little more struggle in my opinion. But like I said earlier, the action as well as Cooler as a character more than make up for it. But yeah, how about we move on to the top 5. And now to the birth of the superior fusion, at least in my heart. Yes, I know Vegito is officially confirmed to be stronger, but I will always like Gogeta more. And that's because unlike Vegito, he gets shit done. But back to the movie, it's pretty solid. The fight scenes are bangers, and we get a compelling moment between Goku and Vegeta, with how the former was able to reach new heights, while the latter could only rot in hell. I also like how they fucked up the fusion in the beginning. It really gave us a ton of funny moments with Veku. Oh, and there's also the Hitler cameo. I don't know why, but it seems like the Goten and Trunks subplot looks like it was drawn differently from some reason. Like, don't the lines look a bit thicker to you? Not that it's a problem or anything, it's just something I caught. But as for the true problems about this movie, well, I guess if I could pick one, it would be the fact that Gogeta was only on screen for like 30 seconds, despite having the movie mainly be about them. And when he does appear on screen, he basically one-shots Janemba with a badass attack, and that's pretty much it. But, you know what they say, quality over quantity. I'm just glad Gogeta had a chance to shine and kick some ass. But to be honest, that's pretty much all I have to say about Fusion Reborn, so how about we move on? And now we get to the beginning of the modern Dragon Ball. While most reboots feel like boring cash grabs, this one did not. In fact, this was apparently Toriyama's revenge for the atrocity that has the nerve to call itself Dragon Ball Evolution. Toriyama took the concept of Dragon Ball Z and expanded it tenfold. They introduced us to Beerus and Whis, who later on became major characters in Super. And not to mention, they established the fact that multiverse is actually a real thing in Dragon Ball. And of course there's the star of the show, Super Saiyan God. I like how unlike Super Saiyans 1 through 3, which bulk up Goku, this transformation slims him down, showing that this form is more than just another power boost. And to be honest, I wish this form was used in Resurrection F instead of Super Saiyan Blue. I'm not saying don't use Super Saiyan Blue at all, I just think a more perfect moment to introduce it would be when Goku found out what Zamasu did to become Goku Black. But back to topic, this movie is not without its faults. Ever since this movie released, they kind of dropped the more serious tone Dragon Ball Z had and just went full-on comedy like the OG Dragon Ball. I mean, they really brought back the Pilaf gang as children just to flip-flop the tone. But even though I said all that, Vegeta's bingo dance is still a work of art and I refuse to believe otherwise. With moves like that, he'd be the perfect fit for the Ginyu Force. But at this point, I'm just going on a tangent, so how about we get to the top 3? Okay, this one's unique. While the other Dragon Ball movies focus on action over story, this one actually puts storytelling and narrative first. This was the final movie in the Dragon Ball Z era, and to be honest, I believe they went out with a bang in this one. Kid Trunks was the star of the show, and surprisingly enough, he was the most compelling in this movie than he ever was. And that could be thanks to the existence of Tapion. I mean, the sibling-like relationship between those two is probably one of the most compelling relationships in Dragon Ball history. And of course there's Hirudegarn, who's to this day the only kaiju villain we've ever seen in the Dragon Ball franchise as a whole. But this movie only made it to number 3 for a reason. I really wasn't a fan of Goku being the one to finish off Hirudegarn, especially since he didn't really play that big of a role in this movie. Don't get me wrong, I undeniably love the Dragon Fist, and believe it should be canonized at some point. And of course, Goku had some badass moments when he went Super Saiyan 3.
Fight me if you're ready to die.
But to be honest, I feel like Trunks or Tapion should have been the one to deliver the finishing blow. I swear, this movie would have at least made the top 2 if they just let Goku take the L. Also, there's this whole thing with Hoi, and to be honest, I don't really like how literally everyone decided, hey, let's help him out. Like, look at the guy's face, he clearly has bad intentions. It really just makes everyone else look like an idiot for going along with the plan. But again, the story and narrative, other than that specific sequence, make up for its faults. So let us get to the top 2. And now for the most recent Dragon Ball movie. Dragon Ball Super Superhero is a truly super film in a super franchise for a super audience. Never in my life had I ever said the word super so many times in a sentence like this. Super weird, huh? Anyway, Goku, Vegeta, and Broly are casted to the side to give Gohan and Piccolo a chance to shine, and to be honest, I agree with that decision. I mean, come on, Gohan hasn't been cool since the Cell Saga and BoJack Unbound, and Piccolo hasn't been relevant since Imperfect Cell. But to be honest, at this point, it doesn't really make sense why suddenly they're on the same level as the pure-blooded Saiyans without pulling a granola and wishing to be the strongest in the universe. Manga spoiler. But it doesn't matter because, again, Gohan and Piccolo get the respect they deserve. And the same can be applied to the Gammas. I originally thought they were just going to be annoying Saiyaman wannabes, but no, they were actually entertaining characters. And of course there's Cell Max. I know some people complain about the fact that this is basically an inferior version from the OG Cell, and to be honest, I agree, but that's the point. He is not Cell. He is an entirely different character from Cell, so his existence does not tarnish his character. I mean, he's basically Bio Broly done right. But other than that, I'm not really a fan of the 100% CGI route they took with this. I mean, it kinda looks like the Simpsons game if it had an HD remaster for PS5. I'll admit, there were some shots where the CGI worked, but most of the time, it just looks weird. They should have just kept the art style from the Broly movie. Also, as I said earlier, Piccolo and Gohan being on the same level as the pure-blooded Saiyan trio just doesn't really make sense. Yes, Piccolo wished for his full potential to be explored, but does it really make sense that he'd suddenly jump up to the power of the pure-blooded Saiyans, even though he couldn't even beat Imperfect Cell before? But yeah, at this point, that's about all I have to say about this movie. And I'm sure we all know which one takes the gold medal, so let us get right into it. This might be a hot take to some, but to me, this is definitely the best in the roster. Not only does it canonize Broly, Paragus, and Gogeta, but it also adapts the prequel manga titled Dragon Ball Minus on the big screen, which tells the story of the final moments of the Saiyans before planet Vegeta gets destroyed by the tyrannical Frieza. The art style, in my opinion, is the best it's ever been, and I believe this should have been the art style in Superhero. And I would like this to be the art style for the Moro arc and beyond, if they ever get adapted to the screen. But this movie isn't just good visually, it also has a very good story, and unlike most of the Dragon Ball movies that feel like really long episodes, this one actually feels like a movie. I also really like the soundtrack, despite it not being 90s and early 2000s rock and metal songs. I don't know about you, but in my opinion, Kakarot vs. Broly goes hard. But yeah, this movie took the original concept of Broly and said that shit's trash, let's improve it tenfold, and they did. They recreated Broly from scratch and actually made him a much more compelling character, without removing some of the traits the OG Broly is mainly known for, like his brutality for one. And of course there's also the fight scenes that to this day are still 10 out of 10 in my book. I swear, every time I rewatch this movie, I still end up in awe and on the edge of my seat. I mean, come on, the fight scene between Broly and Gogeta will always be peak fiction to me. The dimension shattering as well as the S-tier animation and visuals really puts this high up in my favorite Dragon Ball fight scenes, like, ever. I guess if there was anything negative I'd have to say about this movie, it would probably have to be that there were times when the movie felt a little bit rushed. For example, I think the whole Dragon Ball Minus adaptation could have been a little bit longer, and it should have shown Bardock facing off against Frieza. And also, Broly's legendary Super Saiyan, full power Super Saiyan transformation could have used more build-up in my personal opinion. But to be honest, these are just some minor nitpicks I've got, so that really shows that even your favorite movies are in no way perfect. But to this day, 6 years after this film released, I can still say with an open heart that this is my favorite anime movie of all time. Hell, I might even go far enough to say this is actually my favorite animated movie of all time. I suggest you watch or rewatch this movie as soon as possible, because my friend, you will not regret it. But yeah, let us get to the outro. If there are any other franchises where you'd like me to rank their movies or games and whatnot, please let me know in the comment section below. I plan to do something like this for both Batman and Spider-Man movies in the future. But yeah, I hope you look forward to what I've got planned next, I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya, chump!
今日の天気は晴れ雨は去っていた窓を開く理由は特にないけどいつものこの部屋と濁すため息僕は殺したいつだって